Transcript of the 7492nd Galactic Confederation Emergency Protocol Review, Standard Cycle 4629, Subsection Interspecies Threat Assessment. The holographic display flickered with an unsettling image of a bipedal creature wearing something called a tank top and what appeared to be abbreviated leg coverings the species referred to as cargo shorts. Ambassador Krell Knox of the Siborian Consensus adjusted his translation matrix and cleared his throat analogues. Distinguished council members, after decades of careful observation, I present our comprehensive analysis of the recently discovered species known as humans. He paused, which in Siborian diplomatic protocol meant he was approximately 78% terrified. The assembled representatives from 17 different star systems leaned forward. Humans were a new entry in the galactic catalogue of sentient beings, and initial reports suggested something was fundamentally wrong with them. Our preliminary threat assessment. Krell Knox continued, his tentacle fingers trembling slightly, cannot be contained within standard parameters. They do not follow logical progression. They do not respect computational probability. They appear to consider risk as something to be challenged rather than avoided. A holographic montage began playing humans jumping motorcycles over impossibly large gaps, consuming alarming quantities of a stimulant liquid called energy drink, performing complex mechanical repairs using what appeared to be pure improvisation and an implement called duct tape. The Quantum Threat Assessment AI, a carefully constructed algorithm representing the collective computational power of 17 advanced civilizations, had returned a report that was less a scientific document and more a digital shrug of incomprehension. The findings included: humans voluntarily engage in activities with statistically high mortality rates for entertainment. Their problem-solving approach can be summarized as hold my beverage and watch this. They demonstrate an unprecedented ability to transform potential catastrophic failure into unexpected success. Their emotional range includes finding humor in situations that would cause complete psychological collapse in 94.7% of known galactic species. Ambassador Krell Knox's final recommendation was both a warning and a prayer: we must monitor these creatures carefully. They are either the most dangerous species we have ever encountered, or the most brilliantly unpredictable. Little did the Galactic Confederation know, they were about to find out exactly which one. Jack Reeves was not your typical interstellar maintenance engineer. Where most would see a complex quantum stabilization relay as an intimidating network of precision-engineered components, Jack saw a mechanical puzzle waiting to be solved with a wrench, 3 zip ties, and an obscene amount of creative problem-solving. His current assignment with the Galactic Infrastructure Repair Corps was technically Senior Maintenance Specialist, a title that made bureaucratic aliens feel better about hiring a human who looked like he'd just rolled out of a dive bar and into a spacecraft. Standing 6'2" with perpetually rumpled coveralls and a baseball cap that had seen more star systems than most diplomatic missions, Jack embodied humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most unpredictable troubleshooters. The other crew members, a collection of meticulously organized silicon-based life forms from various star clusters, had long since learned that when Jack said, "I've got an idea," it was simultaneously the most exciting and terrifying phrase in any known language. Take his current teammate Zorn, a crystalline being from the Proxima Centauri research colonies who communicated primarily through precise mathematical equations. And Mel Talk, a gelatinous quadrupedal engineer from the methane seas of Epsilon Eridani, who processed information at quantum computing speeds and considered emotional spontaneity a form of mental illness. They watched Jack with a mixture of professional respect and pure, unadulterated terror. Theoretically, Zorn would often say, adjusting his molecular stabilization field, "Your approach defies every known principle of systematic problem resolution." To which Jack would invariably reply, "Yeah," and a response that never failed to make Meltok's translucent form quiver with existential anxiety. His current project involved maintaining the Galactic Hyperspace Relay Station Alpha 9, a critical infrastructure hub that managed faster-than-light communication for 17 different star systems. Most engineers would approach such an assignment with meticulous planning, comprehensive diagnostic protocols, and careful incremental adjustments. Jack Reeves approached it like he was tuning up an old pickup truck. The thing about complex systems, he would explain to his increasingly nervous alien colleagues, is that they're just a bunch of smaller systems that don't know they're supposed to fail yet. This philosophy, which seemed to violate every known principle of engineering, somehow consistently produced results that left senior administrators simultaneously impressed and terrified. His personnel file was a work of bureaucratic art. Performance reviews read like a combination of miracle report and potential crime documentation. Phrases like unexpectedly successful and methodology fundamentally incomprehensible were repeated with numbing regularity. The Galactic Maintenance Board had a special classification just for humans like Jack, unpredictable problem resolution specialists. It was a polite way of saying, we have no idea how he does it, but somehow everything works out. Little did anyone know that Jack Reeves was about to transform an entire galactic infrastructure crisis into something that would make bureaucratic risk assessment algorithms spontaneously combust with confusion. The Galactic Hyperspace Relay Station Alpha 9 wasn't just another piece of infrastructure. It was the communication backbone of 17 star systems, a marvel of engineering that made instantaneous faster-than-light communication possible, which made its catastrophic system failure approximately 37 minutes ago a scenario that was causing widespread panic across multiple civilizations. Zorn's crystalline form was literally vibrating with mathematical distress. The quantum entanglement matrix has experienced a cascading algorithmic breakdown that defies all predictive modeling, he announced, his voice a perfect monotone of pure technological despair. Mel Talk, currently compressed into a tight, translucent blob of anxious energy, added her own assessment. Communication networks across 17 star systems are experiencing total communication blackout. Estimated economic damage 3.6 trillion galactic credits per standard hour. Jack Reeves took a long swig from his thermos, a beverage that was definitely not standard issue maintenance crew hydration fluid, and scratched his chin. "Oh," he said, which was not the response anyone expected during a potential galactic communication apocalypse. The relay station was a masterpiece of alien engineering. Massive quantum entanglement conduits stretched through holographic interfaces, pulsing with energy patterns that would make most organic brains short-circuit just by looking at them. Intricate networks of superconducting filaments connected processing nodes that were so advanced they made Earth's most sophisticated supercomputers look like abacuses. And right now, those advanced systems were about as functional as a screen door on a submarine. Alien protocol dictated an immediate emergency response. 17 different species top engineers were already preparing comprehensive diagnostic packages, each more complex and theoretically sound than the last. Massive computational resources were being dedicated to understanding the failure. Jack Reeves was doing something else entirely. He was poking things. Specifically, he was poking a series of interconnected quantum relays with what appeared to be a modified adjustable wrench and what was definitely not standard maintenance equipment. "Are you?" Striking the communication infrastructure, Zorn asked, his crystalline structure somehow managing to convey both scientific disbelief and mounting horror. "Percussive maintenance," Jack replied cheerfully. "Sometimes technology just needs to be told who's boss." Mel Talk's gelatinous form rippled with what could only be described as pure existential dread. In her extensive database of problem-solving strategies, hitting things was categorically not a recognized repair technique. The station's main communication hub was a labyrinth of quantum entanglement nodes, each more complicated than the last. Alien engineers had spent decades developing intricate diagnostic protocols. These protocols involved comprehensive scanning, multi-stage analysis, careful recalibration, and absolutely zero physical interaction that might disrupt the delicate quantum states. Jack Reeves was about to violate every single one of those principles. His first tap was experimental. His second was confident. By the third strike, something extraordinary began to happen. The quantum relays, which moments ago had been as responsive as a depressed rock, started to flicker. Not in the way computer systems normally flickered, but in a pattern that suggested something between a restart and a slightly annoyed electronic awakening. "What precise mathematical model are you applying?" Zorn demanded, his entire crystalline structure leaning forward with desperate scientific curiosity. Jack grinned. "The make-it-work model." And then, impossibly, the impossible happened. The quantum relays didn't just restart. They came back to life with the enthusiastic energy of a teenager who'd just discovered caffeine. Holographic interfaces that moments ago were dead now pulsed with an almost manic intensity. That, Jack announced to his slack-jawed alien colleagues, is how you talk to temperamental technology. Zorn's computational matrices were working overtime. Your methodology violates approximately 6,742 established engineering protocols across 17 different scientific paradigms, he said, which in his language was basically a compliment. Neltalk had compressed herself into what could only be described as a gelatinous ball of pure scientific disbelief. Her translation matrix was struggling to process what had just happened. Hitting complex quantum infrastructure was not a repair technique. It was barely a concept. But Jack wasn't done. The relay station's quantum entanglement matrix was a delicate thing. Imagine the most complicated game of interdimensional chess, played by computers that communicated through probability waves and mathematical poetry. And Jack was about to perform surgery on it using what appeared to be a combination of intuition, audacity, and complete disregard for the laws of physics. "Okay," he muttered, more to himself than to his increasingly nervous teammates. "Let's see what we're really dealing with." He pulled out a toolkit that looked like it had been assembled by a mad scientist with a vendetta against traditional engineering. Alongside standard maintenance equipment were things that made no sense: a modified smartphone, what appeared to be a piece of chewing gum, 3 zip ties, and something that looked suspiciously like a contraption cobbled together from an old radio and what might have been a toaster. "Is that domestic human technology?" Zorn asked, his crystalline form trembling with a mixture of scientific curiosity and pure, unadulterated terror. "Technically," Jack replied, "it's advanced problem-solving equipment." The quantum relays were complex beyond human comprehension. Alien engineers spent decades understanding just 1% of their operational mechanics. These were systems that could transmit information faster than light, communicate across impossible distances, and maintain perfect synchronization across multiple dimensional planes. Jack was going to fix them with what looked like technological cannibalism. He began by connecting his modified smartphone to a quantum processing node. Zorn's computational matrices were screaming in pure mathematical protest. This was like using a wooden spoon to perform brain surgery. It shouldn't work, it couldn't work, and yet the smartphone began doing something that defied every known principle of computer interaction. It wasn't just accessing the relay's systems, it was negotiating with them. Coaxing, persuading. "What programming language are you using?" Zorn demanded. Jack grinned. "I call it human." The zip ties came next. Not as a temporary fix, but as a precise recalibration tool that would make any alien engineer weep. He wasn't just connecting components, he was creating an entirely new communication pathway that borrowed elements from the existing system, but rewrote its fundamental operational logic. Neltalk's translation matrix finally gave up and displayed a simple message: "does not compute," which was probably the closest any technology had ever come to looking completely bewildered. 37 minutes after the complete system failure, Jack Reeves was reconstructing an entire galactic communication infrastructure using what any rational being would consider complete technological nonsense. And it was working perfectly. The Galactic Confederation Emergency Response Committee convened an emergency session that was less a meeting and more a collective nervous breakdown. Ambassador Krell Knox's holographic projection was flickering with what could only be described as existential panic. "Let me be absolutely clear," he stammered to the assembled representatives. "A human repair technician just restored 17 star systems communication infrastructure using what our top analysts describe as technological witchcraft. The Quantum Threat Assessment AI, which had been meticulously programmed to analyze potential risks, had essentially short-circuited. Its final report was a remarkable document that was 90% question marks and 10% pure computational terror. Preliminary analysis showed that Jack's repair wasn't just functional. It was exponentially more efficient than the original system. The communication relays now operated at 347% above their previous performance metrics, with a stability factor that made previous engineering approaches look like children playing with string and tin cans. "He used a smartphone," repeated Zara Locks, the computational integrity specialist from the Andromedan Consensus, her tentacles trembling. "A device originally designed for human communication and something called Angry Bird games to repair the most complex communication network in galactic history." The bureaucratic response was predictably complex. 17 different species administrative bodies simultaneously reached the same conclusion: absolute, pure bewilderment. Jack Reeves, meanwhile, was drinking coffee and filling out a standard maintenance report as if he'd just changed a light bulb. The report itself was a masterpiece of understated human efficiency. Incident report. Location: Galactic Hyperspace Relay Station Alpha 9. Problem: complete system failure. Solution: percussive maintenance, improvised recalibration. Additional notes fixed. Probably won't happen again. Probably. Alien risk assessment teams began compiling what would become known as the Human Unpredictability Index, a comprehensive study attempting to understand how a species could simultaneously be so chaotic and so brilliantly effective. Nell Talk, who had spent the last several hours running computational simulations, finally spoke. The probability of this repair method working was approximately 0.000000003%, she announced, which means a human would absolutely attempt it. Jack overheard this and gave a thumbs up. Sounds about right. The Galactic Confederation's threat assessment for humanity was immediately and unanimously upgraded. No longer were humans considered a potential risk. They were now categorized as a force of nature, unpredictable, potentially destructive, but ultimately fascinating. Zorn's final analysis captured the sentiment perfectly: humans do not solve problems. They violate the very concept of problem until the universe submits out of sheer bewilderment. In the grand history of galactic engineering, Jack Reeves would become a legendary figure, the human who fixed the unfixable using nothing more than audacity, a smartphone, and what could generously be called creative engineering. And he was going to need another cup of coffee. 6 months after the hyperspace relay incident, the Galactic Confederation had developed an entirely new administrative category specifically designed to manage human interventions. They called it the Unexpected Solutions Protocol, which was bureaucratic speak for we have no idea what they'll do next, but we're preparing for anything. Jack Reeves, completely unaware of his newfound legendary status, was currently drinking coffee and filling out another maintenance report. His current assignment: routine checks on a deep space communication outpost that hadn't responded in 3 standard cycles. Zorn and Meltok flanked him, their presence now less about supervision and more about what could only be described as professional curiosity. Standard protocol suggests a comprehensive diagnostic approach involving remote scanning and multi-phase analysis, Zorn began. Jack took a long swig of coffee. Nah, we're gonna fix this. Meltok's gelatinous form rippled with what could only be described as anticipatory dread. By fix, she translated carefully, you mean utilize scientifically recognized repair methodologies. Jack grinned. Hold my coffee. The universe braced itself. Somewhere in the vast administrative halls of the Galactic Confederation, threat assessment algorithms started warming up. Computational systems across 17 star systems prepared themselves for whatever was about to happen. Because when a human says, hold my coffee, or worse, hold my beer, the galaxy learned to pay attention. Very, very close attention.